Race is a lie, a ghost in the machine, a veil over the eye. Race is a lie, a script for the managed, a reason to die. It's the dementia, the spirit, it's the glitch in the code. It's the heavy, heavy baggage on a sovereign road. Dissolve the construct, right? Yeah, yeah. It started as a lie, a whisper in the dark, designed to keep the brothers from finding the spark. Father is a soul whose sovereign operating system was no longer whole. He didn't pull that trigger from his fully human place. The construct had the wheel, the construct ran the race. So stop fighting your father and dismantle the disease. If a lawyer wrote the code, the architect holds the keys. What was manufactured can be dismantled.
Great Wednesday. Welcome to the Fully Human Trinity Podcast. I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Jess Esther and Mike Murphy.
Hello.
Hello. And we have our special guest that's joining us today, Aurélie Harp. How you doing today, Aurélie?
I'm very good. Thank you.
Excellent. And what we're going to cover today's topic is discuss how, again, the importance of understanding when you go through a wreckage in life, and a wreckage is that point you reach where you've reached rock bottom and your emotional energy is drained, your physical energy is drained, and your spiritual energy is drained, and you have exhausted all options as far as change. And the only thing you can do is either change now or you go deeper into a hole and possibly even die. And so us three have gone through our wreckage to wisdom, and as a result, we've transformed into we like to call the term fully human. We use the song Race is a Lie as an indication that the construct is this evil force that divides us upon these categories, whether it's race, religion, sexual orientation, country, political party, trauma, or even career. There's just descriptions of who we are, but it shouldn't be your identity that you lead your lens through. And when you're going through a Wreckage to Wisdom story, you're open to receiving that kind of information and looking at life from a context of different and questioning your identity, because at the core of it is your identity. And so today we're going to examine each of our stories, and we definitely want to hear from Aurélie, because Aurélie is a community builder. She's a person that I've met on LinkedIn, and identifying people like myself who are in line with change and growth. And Aurélie is someone who I believe is on a journey to be fully human, like myself and Mike and Jess are. And so that's why we wanted to have her on the show. So with that being said, Aurélie, welcome to the Fully Human Trinity.
Thank you so much, and very happy to be here, and inspired by just even the song theme and your introduction on identities are our costumes. Let's get rid of it and be fully human. So here we go.
Absolutely. So now what I want to say for a person who may be new to the show, that, and I kind of want to start with Mike, because I believe that Mike is really at the nucleus of this fully human movement, mainly because of that's where Jess and I met. And then Mike built Mountains of Hope as a way of coming through a wreckage. And so it was a place of healing. I've found healing there. And I think Mike's story is one of the most, I would say, profound stories of, he's gone through several different wreckages in his life. And so Mike, whatever you feel compelled, oh, I'm sorry, I'm almost forgetting the check-ins. Forgive me for that. So let's do our check-ins. And so with that being said, Mike, what would you say your spiritual energy number is, from 0 being life sucks to 10 being life is awesome right now in the moment?
Yeah, my spiritual energy is really high, 10. My physical energy is a little low because I didn't get that great at night. I've been having difficulty sleeping this week. So a physical standpoint, probably about a 7, but spiritually a 10 for sure.
Excellent. How about yourself, Jess? What would you say your number is at this moment?
I'm definitely vibrating at a 10. Super grateful to be here.
And Aurélie, what would you say your number is?
I think maybe my first layers of identity that I will get rid of through the conversation. As a French, we can never say 10. It's too perfect.
Always room for improvement.
Always, yeah, exactly. So I'm going to say a 9. But also, I'm very excited. So very, very into getting into the 10, the collective 10 that we have.
And I joined Jess and Mike at a 10. And again, the reason I asked that question for folks who are new to us is that over the years, I've had lots of podcasts, meetings, events. And I asked that question as a check-in because what I realized that everything is energy and energy is everything. And right before our meeting, someone could bring, something could have happened, could have argued with a spouse, could have got cut off in traffic, could have had a conversation with your son or a daughter that just kind of lowered your energy. And what I've learned is that people who say 6 or less, it's best to reschedule instead of just checking off the task because they're not going to be fully present. They even may be engaged. You don't get to see their best selves show up. It's not who they are. It's just that in that moment, their energy is impacted by something that just triggered it before the meeting. So that's why I asked. And then when people say 8 or better, it's going to lead to a great conversation. People are going to lean in, and then we're going to be supportive of each other. And I believe in the infinite possibilities that can happen as a result. So with that being said, I'm a 10. And thank you all for answering that question and indulging me with that question. So to get our show started, as I was saying, Mike, I kind of want to begin with you because I see you as a nucleus of where Jess and I met. And that's kind of what forged the Fully Human movement that we're building. And so if you want to share any of your stories that led you to becoming what I would say as fully human.
Well, I could share a million probably, but I want to, something on my heart today is that, increasing productivity and if you're going to accomplish something significant in this world, I believe that we all came here to learn something or to do something, and to own that and to figure that out is one thing, but to do it is another thing. And what I've noticed in my life is that, the middle of February, I was totally fried and burnt out. My nervous system was fried. I couldn't even write an email. I was so exhausted and burned out and fried. And so for the first time in my life, I kind of hit pause on a project that wasn't fully complete because I had to. And as a result of that, I started really praying a lot and trying to change my lifestyle, because what happened, I became so obsessed with the project Mountains of Hope that I was literally harming myself and not loving myself and pouring all my energy and love into our patients. And it became an unhealthy obsession. And so I had to hit pause, and then I had to look at my lifestyle and my life, right? And so I see today so many people, me being one, we have a myriad of bad habits, okay? It might be as simple as first thing when we open our eyes, we pick up our cell phone, and that takes us to TikTok and this and that, and we're wasting time and energy, and we're affecting our health because of the blue light, the EMF, and all that. What I'm doing now to increase my productivity is I start each day with a few prayers and get centered, right? Even if I don't sleep well, it's a little harder, but I still take the time to do that. But in my case, I would come home from Mountains of Hope and I'd have a beer and I'd smoke a joint, and that was my way to relax. And then in the morning, instead of eating good, nutritious food, I would down there, it's DoorDash, is called Rappi, but I'd Rappi a Starbucks. And so I was ignoring myself and my own health and doing everything I could and I was stuck in a rut. And so I started to change those habits, right? And I started to change my mindset, and I started to change my energy. And what I see in the world today, look at all the things that the traps we can fall into: alcohol, marijuana, opiates, Xanax, shopping, food, gambling, sex. It goes on and on and on. And the scrolling. We all have that problem, right? Or at least the majority of us. So I'm getting away from all that stuff. And immediately my productivity, which, for me, when I was younger, in an 8-hour day, I could produce 16 hours worth of work. Okay. And then in the last few years, in a 10-hour day, I might produce 2 or 3 hours of productivity. And so I was so frustrated. And so I started changing all those things and replacing them with good habits like nutrition, walking, exercise. and changing my mindset and getting back into my heart. Okay. I'm the most flawed human being there is in this world, right? To me, I read a book a long time ago called The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. And the opening sentence is, life is difficult. And that's how life is for me. Okay. But I keep on striving and going the best I can with much energy. So, and the other productivity hack that I've discovered is that if I would have had 2 or 3 years ago, perhaps Mountains of Hope wouldn't have. The reason it became such a burden, I felt like I was a one-man band. I really didn't have support at the top level. So it was very, very difficult. And I didn't speak Spanish. But now I've discovered ChatGPT, whatever it's called. And so that, from a productivity hack, has been amazing. Now I'm able to produce 12, 14 hours in a day by having a healthy lifestyle, staying centered, staying in my heart, staying grounded in Mother Earth, getting red light. And all of a sudden that increased my productivity probably 4x. And then you add in this IA, which for now can be used as a very powerful thing in my life. And now my productivity is 12x. So that's what I wanted to share with people is, we got to replace the habits that don't serve our higher self. We have 7 chakras, right? And we have the lower 3, which is the carnal. And from the heart up is the spiritual. And so for me, I mean, I'm fully human in all those regards. And so I always say, if it feels good, I like it and I want to do it twice, right? So I have to really monitor those lower chakras and really elevate myself and live from the heart and beyond, and realize that I'm in a human body, or an animal body is the way I say it, but I'm actually spirit. And so to really resonate with the spirit and then tie into the field of infinite possibilities, my spirit into that spirit. And the more I do meditations around that, I can collapse onto, we're made of atoms, okay? And what are atoms? Of photons and electrons, and that's the real energy. And we're electrical beings. And when I can tap into that electrical field right here and the magnetism of the heart, then we can create miracles in our life. So that was on my heart today. So there's my current wreckage of the past.
Well, gratitude for sharing that, and there's so much you share it within that I definitely resonate with. And I can tell how Aurélie and Jess are responding, that they resonate with it as well. I just want to share this quickly, is that, to your point, Mike, I put myself on a 180-day journey on December 25th, December 26th, to reprogram my mind, to make sure I was in control of what I was bringing into my mind. So it was no more TV, radio, anything that wasn't about positive health and growth or AI. I wasn't consuming it mentally. And then I also did my own affirmations. I started listening to initially Neville Goddard's affirmations in the morning. And then I made sure I wanted to control the last 30 minutes of my life, my mind at night before I went to bed. And I didn't know that Mike had already written about this in the Creation Frequency. And I had got those seeds from that was already thinking now in my head to think through that way. And to his point, what it's done for me is it has allowed me to really look at life and understand this key point. Because people say that when you set goals all the time, you're constantly thinking in the future. You say, here's what I'm going to do tomorrow. Here's the KPIs. Here's all the performance goals. And then they say, well, enjoy the journey of life. But what I realize is that life is itself, it's a journey. Because there really is no present. I'm sorry, there is no past and there is no future. There's only the present. The future is a hope, but we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. You can make all the plans you want, but we don't know. And the past is just a memory. And if we all was think about what happened in the past, we would all have 3 different recollections of that, or 4 different recollections of that. So that proves that that's not real either. It's just a memory, our interpretation of how we saw the past, but doesn't mean it's actually true. So the only thing that's real is right now. And when you live in a moment and live in understanding of life right now is a blessing, then you recognize your state of gratitude, your eyesight, your hearing, your ability to see, walk, talk, breathe, have sound mind. And that for me sets my gratitude level at a 10 when I go through that checklist. And then the day is going to happen as the day happens, right? And I've learned to believe there is no good or bad. It's only how I receive it. And so that's kind of the space I'm in. And it doesn't always work, but it's the true north that I get back to when I get off track, to say this is where I want to be and set myself in that space. So gratitude for sharing that, Mike, because again, it shows that we're definitely in resonance, and that's why I enjoy really beginning to build with you. And the same thing I see in Jess as well. Because Jess, you know, we talk about identity, and you and I have shared these conversations where I think you've had 5 identity shifts in your life, right? And each identity shift is major. It's going to impact you as way as how you're seeing the world going forward. And people don't realize how important identity is. And the mistake we think we can make is you can't logically talk someone to change your identity because it's too rooted in who they are and how they think. They have to see it themselves, from my experience, by going through a storm or wreckage. And then you question your identity to say, who am I? Why am I doing this? And I have to change. So Jess, with that being said, the context, you share with us what's in your heart in this space right now.
Yeah, thank you. What's on my heart in my space right now is my father and his identity. If I could just name his identity, his name is Tom. And really, he's present in this space right now because he gave up his identity. He ended his life. And it literally ended the identity of him. And I realized that wreckage. I realized that the ending, like the shocking ending that can happen sometimes in a storm. And that life is a storm, that life is challenging, that things get rough. And being at Mountains of Hope, I knew it was essential for me. I knew that I needed to be there to serve myself and to be in service of others. And I feel like it was an initiation. It was a time for me to get really focused and purify my body with the living food and with the opportunity to give people more life force, you know, to hold space while they're going through their own storm was my preparation. Like, actually helped me distill a few things in my world. And as I was there in Colombia, I remember my dad reaching out and saying, that seems really far away. That feels really dangerous. What's going on down there? And I didn't know the wreckage that he was really in. He and I had been distanced for some time, and intentionally, as I was doing a lot of healing work that had a lot to do with him and his reality. And I didn't know that as we left, that I would be going back into that storm, that wreckage. There were a few times that I've stepped into my dad's storm, but this time I was standing in my own location when I received the information that he had actually pulled the trigger. And what's interesting is that I received, or he made his transition on December 26th. And then I received from King that was his initiation day to start his 180-day journey. And I see that, like, from the storm, from the wreckage, from the release, something new is automatically born. And I knew from that experience, which was first a shocking experience, but then it was a very healing experience because a few of us got to spend all of Christmas Day together, surrounding my dad on his bedside. And it was incredibly healing for all of us to have that opportunity. And I knew at the end of that I was going to do something for him, something for myself, something for humanity, that is a moment to pause before a reaction and to continue opening myself up to spaces of grief, to spaces that are the struggle, and to breathe in that moment. You know, I have like a lot of grief work that I've been doing. There's moments of like, what ifs, which is this anticipatory grief. What if in that moment he had taken a breath and reached out, which was the plan? You know, what if we had that safe space for connection? And what can we do now to continue opening up spaces so that for myself, I feel like I'm expanding to be able to hold space for gratitude inside of grief. And my dad helped show me that whole day that we got to spend with him, because he ultimately was saved by some earth angels for a day, and he was held alive, probably against his will, but it worked out for the highest and best. And in that time, we got to get really clear about life and connection and what actually matters. And that these connections that we have in love are found in our deepest spaces of grief. And it's like that space of grief actually just opens up the field to the miracle and to what's really, really important. So in this present day, knowing that the past is gone and the future isn't here yet, I feel so grateful to just like open this space, say this.
Jess, you may be frozen there, Jess, for a second. Well, until Jess comes back, I just continue. What Jess is really building on is really powerful, to share that feelings. I remember Jess sharing that with me when her father committed suicide and how she felt about that. And to do that, just the timing was so catastrophic because of the fact that Jess was talking about, she had told me so much about when we were in Colombia planning for her 50th birthday and how important that was going to be to have her family together. And she'd been planning that for like at least 6 months. And her 50th birthday was going to be right around Christmas when her family got together. So now that legacy is tainted on her 50th birthday with her father. And she still can find some form of gratitude in that grief. And that to me is what makes Jess really fully human in that space. And that's where, to me, the essence of fully human is, it's finding gratitude or blessings within the grief. And other people just find victim and pain and sorrow. It's there, but how do you turn it into something to learn from and grow? And I'll share my story, my gratitude, and I would say my wreckage to wisdom story. And that centers around me growing up my entire life and being taught that as a child, particularly as a black skin suit child, you're told from the very beginning that you're black and that you're a boy. And that as a result of that, hey, welcome back, Jess.
I'm back.
Yeah, I want to give you a chance to finish. Were you done finished? I don't want to have you get cut off by the accident of the community of technology.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect timing, right? Because I'm normalizing that things can get cut off. And that in that cutoff, there's like a pause, there's like a hold and a waiting. So thank you for holding space for me and waiting while I demonstrated that. The opportunity that I'm finding more and more is the space that's being held for connection. And that intention being love. Can we share more love when we're connected? And so that was it. That was like the end of what I wanted to share. So what a beautiful opportunity to take a breath while I stepped away to come back and offer that. Thank you. I'm complete.
Well, gratitude for getting back on and definitely ending with that, because you're absolutely right. I believe that love is the energy that gets us, rises up our other energies. I was sharing about how my identity was rooted in my race, and then rooted and taught that you have to be twice as good as a white boy, right? So that as a young boy, that's what you've been taught from the very beginning. And you get your whole community and everyone else instills that in you as you grow up. I remember a friend of mine telling me that his mother told him two things. You better not ever lose a fight against a white boy or a light-skinned boy. So even within our race, if he was lighter than you, then that was a problem. And so growing up with that kind of thinking and trying to find what my purpose was, with understanding I'm born a victim and being told I'm a victim and have to look at life through that lens, that everything's going to be attacking me and the whole world's against me because I'm black, and having to deal with that. And then still trying to navigate and have some form of desire, ambitions. And like, I remember I was very little, saw Star Wars when I was 7, and my teacher asked me what I wanted to be when I got older. And I said, I want to be an astronaut based on seeing Star Wars. And then you learn as you get older that no, that's not an option for you. You get that off the table. You can't be an astronaut, you know. I don't know if there wasn't any black astronauts to look at as an example. And so race became everything. It became your most dominating thought, whether somebody wants to admit it or not. If a person walks into a room, particularly a black person, and they see that they're the only one based on that skin suit in that room, your first thought is, I'm the only one in this room, right? Then you got to try to filter that noise out and try to look and see, okay, who else do I have anything in common with based off what they're wearing or how they're standing or what they're talking about. And what folks don't realize how much of a drainage that is when you look at everything through race. And coming to Mountains of Hope was the first time I got a chance to experience not feeling as though I was the only black person there, because everybody was healing. And I didn't get the feeling that, okay, there's a race thing or hierarchy or any kind of separation. It was just human beings all healing and being there for one another, because we can appreciate that everybody has the journey of healing they have to go through. And my wreckage had me lose my identity. And in losing my identity, I had to find my way back. And that's where I got turned on to, I got exposed to Mike Murphy's book, The Creation Frequency, and read that. And they have put me on the path to start looking at things differently. But I had to go through my wreckage for me to be open to that. Had I been exposed to his book before, prior to my wreckage, where everything was going great when I was in Baltimore, I purchased 50 homes, and I'm sitting here with families in those homes, and they're in a lease-to-own program through my curriculum. I'm working with universities, I'm working with banks, I'm working with business leaders, I'm taking pictures with the mayor. Everything's going great. You know, working toward bringing in a $50 million fund to expand. Then COVID hits. And then I learned firsthand all that race stuff I've been believing all the time, and having everybody, give me all the amens, went out the window when there was a moratorium on evictions, and I couldn't evict them, and they weren't going to pay their rent. So all this brotherly love went out the window, and I had to learn the hard time that you can't build a movement off shared trauma. The movements have to be built off love. And so I went to Mountains of Hope now, feeling open to receiving that. And then finally, my mother's passing really opened me to a space where I went there fully ready to lean in. Even though my goal was to meet Mike Murphy, I didn't know what a detox in that kind of facility would do for me. I had taken detoxes my entire life. So I really wasn't going there for a detox. It was like, I can detox here. I was really going to meet him and try to understand who this man was that would be so moved and so inspired, as well as broken, to say, I'm going to create a space for others to heal so they don't have to go through what my wife went through. I just really wanted to meet a person like that, because being in the conscious capitalism world of everyone talking about higher purpose in business and triple bottom line and all these buzzwords that people use, you don't really see people implement that. They talk their frameworks, but they don't live their frameworks. And so that's why I went to Mountains of Hope, and then allow myself to go there and not see through my color lens, my race lens, allowed me to connect with Jess, where I wouldn't have been open to connecting with her, because I'd have been viewing her as a white woman. She's other. She's separate from me. Is she racist? Is she prejudiced? Right? That's the most dominant thing that most Black people think about, whether they share it with you or not. The question comes to mind, are they racist? As though it's a binary question. And most folks don't understand that. So that's my journey. That's how I came into this. And Aurélie, you have a similar story in the context. I look at your bio, and when you're not connected, with you being a group development coach, and you also create an organization called Wemanity that I misunderstood and read as Wemanity, and you told me that was your original name for it. And the fact that you want to look at how we can get away from this hyper-individualism, and you had ways of having work groups and events and discussions where people can get a chance to come in and be in their messiness, as you like to say. I got a chance to experience being in one of your sessions, and I was really moved because you had the folks from all around the world. France, there was someone from England, someone from New York. You're in New York now, myself in the DC area. And I just saw 8 people from remote areas of the world all sitting here talking. During that time, that's when we had just went to war with Iraq. Iran, I'm sorry. And it was just fascinating to see folks that was open to having that kind of conversation. And one of the things I really got from you, and that's what I really wanted to build with you, once a person has finished talking, you ask, well, what did everyone else receive from what they said? Seeking it first to understand and to be understood. I thought that was so powerful as a methodology to add kind of to what I'm doing. So I just want to welcome you to the show. With that being said, you've definitely been a person that's been on this journey with me over this 180 days, and I'm honored to have you. Your mic is muted, actually. I'm sorry, I don't know why it's muted.
Or maybe it's low. I kind of heard you.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Technology interrupting. So I was just saying that. I was just, gosh, I feel like my heart is full and messy, and King, and I think Jess Esther now as well knows that messy is one of my favorite word and way of operating as well. So yes, I think like my history is like a series of events when I was always, wondering about the world we live in, when it seems that we're all, everything is made to make us separated in categories, in identities, and where, like, I was thinking, like, am I really naive? But like, how can we be human together and not have these scripts that are written for us all the time, and that makes us like very distant or careful with one another, not ready to, I don't know, to live our lives fully. And I have a background partly in marketing, but also theater. And I think theater was always this place when I really enjoyed having the shared experience of having life performed in front of you and having all these big existential questions raised to the audience, and all of a sudden the audience being together and having a collective response and participation to what was going on, and how all this experience was in a way making me, but I think others, think, process emotions, go through life, just feel like I would always think like, oh, I'm not the only one going through this. Surely others are going through this. And that made me feel less alone with my own experience, and more capable, I guess, of saying, maybe I have the tools to go through life. So that's kind of like was the instinct of the very beginning of my group experience. And then I met people at the Eastside Institute and really learned more about the methodology of the group being the unit where things can emerge between people, and how can we go beyond our individual existence, our individual stories. How can we really use more our life experience and imagination and curiosity and playfulness to be together? And I got hooked, really hooked, because I realized how there are so many things that we are not supposed to be doing. We're not allowed as people to do in the world. Like only artists can do this kind of thing. Only actors can have access to this. And you're like, no, we are every human being is highly creative, and we are creating our lives all the time. So for me, the group is really the unit of what is giving us the energy to not only to create the tools we need, but also to find the life force that we need to go through things. And personally, like what I was very listening as well to Jess Esther and your story of your dad and grief. How you and I had this conversation one day when I was telling you of both my own history with grief, and first I was lucky enough in life that grief happened to me later in life, and then and grief can take many many colors, I would say, from losing somebody, but also like, so for me, like the most recent grief is learning about my son having a degenerative disease that is leading to blindness. And so it's not grieving death, it's grieving the possibilities for a human being that you love. And what I realized in this moment is it's kind of like when COVID happened, when you have a paradigm shift, and it's like 1 second you felt a certain way and your world was a certain way, your belief was a certain way, and all of a sudden everything shifts, and you are in this moment of big unknown, loss. And I discovered through that first my floor was my biggest friend. Like I could lay down on the floor and touch the bottom, the rock bottom, but also that there were others, and that loss was what is also making us human. And by sharing with others, by creating with others, by also both accepting, but also again giving different colors in life to grief was what life is about. And I was like, oh, grief is actually helping me to be stronger, to be bolder, to look at life and just to be like, this is hard, and yet I can grow the muscles and the emotional muscles with others to be in life and to continue moving. So I'm gonna stop here because I feel like I'm going in many directions, but I really feel that Wreckage in a way is what is bringing us or breaking us into pieces. And when there are moments when it's almost as if you were like, oh my God, we are made of atoms and little fractions of, and all of a sudden it's like, how do you bring that all back together and finding the energy with others to belong and to continue to have the human force. So here it is.
Perfect.
Well, gratitude for sharing that. You know, what I want to take a moment for now is reflecting on what you said, you know, because we definitely, I mean, you shared with us that you said your son is eyesight may be deteriorating. And I could imagine what that feels like to go through that, to experience that, and then still find gratitude some form in that way. To me, that is the true essence of faith, right? Faith is when you have to use it. I think it's like any other muscle, it atrophies. People say they have faith, but you know you have faith when you put through that wreckage. And I remember Mike sharing with me his story about his father being alcoholic and growing up in that situation, and I was always fascinated how Mike was able to, because I've seen that story so many times that gets played out where if that's the environment you grew up in, the result is either prison, jail, or drugs, or you become an alcoholic as a result. And Mike, you were able to choose, even though you still had wreckages along the way, but you kept constantly improving yourself and being committed to a growth minded. And even still to this day, saying through all the other stuff you've been through that has drained you, broken you, then you still say, well, I want to create a intentionality that the world can now focus on love and focus on that for 5 minutes. So Mike, why don't you walk us into that?
Yeah, before I do, if you allow me just a minute to comment on, first of all, Jess, my condolences for your father. My spirit was greatly moved as you told that story. And so imagine, you know, I started by saying, you know, life is difficult, right? And then King, you know, growing up black, I grew up white in America in 1957. So I had a huge advantage over you, right? And so, but to be programmed to not like white people or not to be beat up by a white person, just think of the devastating long-term effects if that gets into our subconscious, which it does, and then stays there. Fortunately for you, it's out of your subconscious. And for you, Aurélie, you know, to go through a serious illness with a loved one, especially a son, you know, I've been blessed. I have 4 children. I haven't experienced that, but I have experienced loss with other loved ones. And so, and for me, before I get into that, can I just tell one little story, King? Because
Absolutely.
I'm here to try to help people that are suffering, and I want to talk about charity and loving compassion, and how we can get out of our situations by helping others or supporting others. I hardly ever talk about the charitable things that I do, because I was taught by Byron Katie in one of her workshops that if you want to break your ego, do something nice to someone every day anonymously. And there's great power in that. So, but I'm going to tell a story, because this is what I think charity should be. Instead of giving to the American Cancer Society or the Pink Ribbon people or whatever, okay, if you really study those, 80% of the money goes for their salaries, their private plane trips, and so on and so forth. And so I believe in charity one-on-one. So I met a young woman in Colombia, she's probably about 30 years old now, a couple of years ago. And I never even told her this, but I like her because she reminds me of my late wife. So I've tried to help her, get a job or learn English, because she has the burden of taking care of her mother and her grandmother, because the grandfather was the supporter. He died. And the grandmother has severe Alzheimer's disease, right? And she'd gotten to the point where she's literally eating her feces or diaper. So this poor girl, she can't work because that's her full-time job, taking care of her mother and her grandmother. So it got to the point where she got really bad, and she reached out to me for help, not just for advice, not for money or anything like that, to see about getting her into some sort of assisted care, because it was getting just uncontrollable. I mean, she couldn't control her bowels or her urine. It was a mess. So I gave her the money to put her grandmother into a really nice living facility where she can live there. And she sent me video of the grandmother waving goodbye and being surrounded by all these other patients. So she was heartbroken. She lived with her grandmother her entire life. She's 30 years old. So she was heartbroken to have that, but to see that. But see, that's what real charity should be like today. And I'm not saying this to lift myself up. I prefer to stay anonymous when I do these things. But I'm sharing this because this is what the world needs right now. And so leading into this 5-minute thing that I want to create, which I originally created when my wife was given 6 months to live, and had people all over the world praying in 5-minute increments for her. And it was a beautiful thing to see, to go on the website and to see all these red dots in all these countries all over the world, maybe 3,000 people that had signed up for these 5-minute increments. So I feel like humanity is in a difficult spot right now. You look at these wars, you look at the inflation, you look at this blah, 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 blah. And so we need to unite. Everything that you see, all this craziness that you see on Fox, CNN, which I don't watch, I just hear about from my relatives, is that, it's insane. Okay. And so, but the truth is, they got all the money, they got all the power, they got all the weapons, they got everything. And we're just sheeple. Okay. And so all that is to distract us from becoming together and uniting as one. So my vision is, if we want to change the consciousness in this earth right now, that we need to unite. And so my vision would be, whatever it's called, Pray for Humanity, Heart for Humanity, but people from all over the world, we become one, and we sign up to just give 5 minutes of our time each day, where ideally we sit into the sunshine, we ground the Mother Earth, and we close our eye, and we see in our mind's eye the world that we want to live in, one without racism, one without serious disease, because most of these diseases are caused by our environment and what we do to ourselves. Very, very few, less than 1 or 2% is genetic. Okay, it's the environment that's causing all this. Our environment turns on the genes, turns off the genes. When we understand quantum physics, we realize that we don't have to live this way, right? But there's an agenda, and somebody's making billions and billions of dollars with the healthcare system that's making us sick. So I want to see in my mind's eye a world where we're united in community and unity and responsibility and integrity and compassion and joy and love. And so if people would sign up, just to give us 5 minutes to see that in their mind's eye, and whatever that is for them, as long as it's on the higher scale of consciousness, okay? It's about love and unity and all those things. And if you want to get on there and spew hatred, we don't want you, okay? Go over here and create your own consciousness over there, and let us evolve this consciousness of one of love and compassion for one another. And so we see it in our mind's eye, which is what I teach in the creation frequency, which, by the way, was taught to me by someone else, by the grace of God, when I was 24 years old. And so the man changed my life forever. He never knew it. You know, I didn't tell the story till after he was long gone. But that's the seed. We plant these little seeds, and then they grow and they become something huge. So perhaps this can be that. And the main thing, while we're seeing in our mind's eye, we feel it. This is the magnet. This is the electricity that goes into the field of infinite possibilities. Imagine connecting with millions of others with that same frequency and vibration. And then the heart brings it back into the 3D physical reality, and we change this consciousness. Now, I don't know what else to do at this point. I mean, we're not gonna do a Million Man March. We're not gonna change anything with that. We're gonna change it with love and consciousness and unity. And so that's my vision for that.
Well, gratitude for sharing that, Mike. I think that's powerful. When you first shared it with me, I said I immediately went to do my part to help get that message out to the world because it's needed. You know, Stevie Wonder has a song called "Love is in Need of Love Today," right? Because again, I think that our society has made love, it's tricked us and turned love into lust. And so now that's what people associate with love and romanticism and the holidays and commercialism, and as opposed to it being a feeling that you can lift someone up with. And I've seen that. I've seen Jess and I both share love with Rachel. And when I first met Rachel, I remember the first day I had a conversation with Rachel. She was in her kitchen of her home, and I was told she was not going to be able to get on a call. It was a Zoom call because she wasn't feeling well. And I'm talking to her husband, Todd, and we're talking, and I'm explaining to Todd what my vision is and what we are planning with Jess and I building. And Rachel happened to walk by. I see her walk by in the back. She had a scarf on, and she came back again while Todd and I was talking. She was slowly leaning in, and then she finally sat next to Todd. And then she eventually ended up getting on the Zoom call. And what I'm saying is that I've watched love help raise the physical energy vibration up enough that now she's engaging with the call, a call that she physically wasn't going to be in it, have the energy to be on. But when she heard us talk about love and building, it naturally resonated with her. And that increased her energy, her physical energy enough to the point where she's joining. And we've watched her grow from being near death's door and planning for it to now radiant and every day texting me like, King, we're doing another podcast. How can we get the word out? And I've watched that transformation. And she talks about how, so I've seen if you give people love and you're truly authentic with it, it does transform people. Not only transform them, this is where I believe we're quantumly connected, as Mike talked about earlier, but it also transforms you. And that's the beauty of love. So I just want to give everybody the opportunity to share any thoughts you all have on on what love and what love has meant to you, or anything else you want to share that we're building on.
Yeah, I would love to share just a little bit because I'm remembering that day now so vividly. Rachel's the one who went to Mountains of Hope first and led me there by one of those little seeds that she planted. And then also was the one that I went to go be with while she was going through a health crisis and when I met Aurélie. And so these connections are our quantum entanglement. I truly believe that. And sitting in that kitchen that day, what she heard in passing was a story that you were sharing, King, about a man who was in his wreckage. You happened to have gone to a conference and he walked in the back door and he was a veteran and he had no housing and he was literally just like asking for help. And this room of amazing humans really came through for him because he was willing to like reach up and ask when he was at his lowest point. He was willing to actually be on the floor, Aurélie, and be like, meet me here. I'm at my rock bottom. And I don't think a lot of people have that capacity. Sometimes we think if I'm going to go to rock bottom, I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose my sanity. I'm going to lose my life, whatever. But this man had enough faith that he walked in a room and he asked for that assistance. That's what had Rachel lean in, because she was like, that's love energy. That lifts me up. That gives me life. And then she sat down in front of King and she was like, I did that. When I was in Croatia and I was at my rock bottom, I did that. I created Goddess Tears.
Mm.
And that's what we are doing with this love energy. Like, just being in the storm, being in the wreckage, being at rock bottom, laying on the floor, being like, I don't have this figured out. And then looking over and be like, oh, Mike, you're here too. Nice to meet you on the floor. Like, let's create some love together. Let's like get this unity thing going, because there's nowhere else to go. So yeah, thank you for bringing Rachel into this conversation. We are definitely creating love inside of our deepest suffering, and not creating more suffering. Let's be clear and distinct about that, right? We're creating something new, that vision of the world that we want, so that when we get up off the floor, we're creating that.
And I'm going to say what I'm hearing, Jess, Esther, is that, very often we hear love as if it was just a feeling, and love is an activity. It's a verb, and how it's also one of the tools that it is the tool we have to really connect and give energy. We can have anger as well. And by the way, nothing wrong with anger when it's at the service of, when it can be channeled. But there is something about love that is very much like healing and giving us the life force as an activity to do together. Mm. You cannot do love alone, I think. I mean, you can self-love, but it's still a relationship to the world.
And I'm loving that love is not perverted, right? Like, love is genuine, love is authentic, and it's just real. And it is just connection, right? Connection without meaning, without judgment, without all the other mental constructs that we put on love, because it's none of that. It is like this most simple, pure connection.
Yeah, but King said it best. And if you look on Instagram and TikTok, love is being replaced with lust. And that's the issue I see in the world here, is that everybody's looking for their 15 minutes of fame and their fortune, and solely centered on themselves and not centered on the rest of humanity. Even in families, I see that breakdown. And speaking of anger, St. Paul said, be angry, but sin not. We need a little bit more anger in the world of the injustice. My favorite quote, one of the quotes I live by, is Martin Luther King, that an insult to justice anywhere is an insult to justice. Injustice anywhere is an insult to justice everywhere. And that's the problem. There's so much economic injustice in this world. It's not even racial injustice anymore. It's purely economic. Okay. And so there's the poor whites, the poor blacks, they're all treated like garbage. Okay. And now they're eliminating the middle class, and pretty soon it's just going to be rich and poor. And these elite up here, I don't think they're operating from their heart and soul. And they're all involved in these huge corporations that are now monopolies. And corporations have only one mandate: to make as much money for their shareholders as they can. So when I was growing up, Joe owned the barber shop, Tom had the grocery store, Larry had this. They had heart and soul, so we could do business. Now it's just with this AI, we are literally becoming slaves. If you don't see that, believe me, it's happening right before our very eyes. And if you look at what their ultimate agenda is to enslave humanity. And so that's why it's important that we come together right now through love. And I love what Aurélie said, but love is a verb. Okay. That's what I was trying to illustrate. If you're suffering or you're not fulfilled, get out of yourself and give to someone else. And I promise your frequency will rise so high, and then you'll start attracting, because you're vibrating that frequency. It's very, very simple. Just look at nature. When you plant a seed, you get this. You give, you get this. But as the Bible says, it's not 1x to 1x. It's 10x, it's 20x, it's 50x. You can't outgive God. And so when you surrender to life and you eliminate fear, and you're fearless and you're full of love and compassion, and you hop into the river of life, believe me, it's always going to end up okay. Even through tragedies like your son, even through the death of your father, there's always a silver lining. Everything works together if we're vibrating that higher frequency. But if we're not, and I've been there, okay, and this is why my heart goes out to people, is I've been vibrating that lower frequency. I've been in that rut. I know how difficult it is to get out. So that's why everything I do, my books, whatever, is geared for helping people, to inspire people to want to become the best version of themselves, and realize that this is just a game. It's really just an illusion. The trick is to figure it out, maintain your soul, tap into your spirit. And when you exit body through your crown chakra, you're going to be free, and you'll have better choices, or you're going to come back here and perhaps go through. And this is not heaven. This is not hell. It's probably, from my Catholic upbringing, this may be purgatory, right? Because you have heaven and hell existing at the same time, and we get to choose which one we want to live in. That's the beauty of the free will, right? So
yeah, it's great that you're bringing that up. I wonder if we could just use a real live example, because Aurélie brought it to the space, and that's her son. You know, it's the real live example that we have to look at right now of, like, he's got a new diagnosis, and so you're all on the floor dealing with that impact. And then being on the floor together and looking over and being like, hey, you're here. Like, how do you want to connect and love through this? How do you want to live and move forward through this? And that becomes the opportunity of service right there. So I'd like to just, share the mic with Aurélie and ask, from a mother's point of view, and even from a fully human point of view, where we're giving, what's the opportunity for him and for you in this storm?
First of all, I think it's going to be an ever-changing opportunity that's not linear. There are some sidetrack and backtrack and so on, but every time it's an opportunity to really think about, what do I want to do with my life? How do I connect with people? I'm going to say that the immediate effect is funny. It made us all slow down. And it's funny because we started the conversation, Mike, with productivity, and I had a response to that, because I think we're also in a world that is pushing us for hyper productivity, commodification of everything without thinking, and so on. And in a way, I so appreciated having the opportunity as a family, as a community, with friends and so on, to take that moment to really slow down and to look at each other and to be like, okay, so how do we want to live our lives? What do we want to change? Do we make the same decisions? How do we give more flavor and savor to everything? And this year, we're in a good year, because it's kind of a disease that goes by like an iceberg. Like, when there are moments it's invisible and then you lose a big chunk. But this year we are in the invisible moment. So we take it too. Like, I think that's also the lesson, is to not always live with the fear of, oh, the bad is going to happen, or the grief has only one color, but more like, no, appreciate every moment. And I think, in a weird way, it took away some anxiety, because we are what we got. And also for me, and my group helped me a lot, by the way, on that, was to tell me, your son is leading his life. How can you support him leading his life / what are the lessons for you to lead your life with that? So there are thousands of shift in gratitude in all of this, with the fear. Of course, the fear doesn't go away. Of course, but I also realized that for me personally, I decided to be very involved with research and with the community of people who have the same disease. It's amazing, like, where King, I was thinking of what you said at the beginning of identity, costumes, and, like, all of a sudden you don't think so much of Black, old, young, or whatever. It's all of a sudden people have that common experience that you go through, and you talk, and it was kind of like also seeing that oh, we can do something together. So that's another benefit. And research, we're talking about quantum a lot. It helped me appreciate even more research, and also be very realistic how research is. It goes very fast and very far, and there are still a lot of limitation. And how are you building with all of that? Knowing that something will be found, like, there will be something. And I don't know, I think it's also, for me, giving us an opportunity to live with the unknown. And that's the other thing I would say, that I found in our society, is the fear of the unknown is making us do things that, like, as if we were not alive. And the one thing we might know is that we're going to die one day. When, how? But in between, we have so many things we can do. So let's live life fully. Yeah.
It takes me back to, I have a lot going on in my mind right now. The first thing I want to say is this: when it comes to AI and technology, and to the fear point, I hear a lot of people talking about all the danger what AI is going to do, and as though AI is not already here. And I tell people, you don't realize how much AI is controlling your life right now. If you stream movies, AI is controlling it. If you listen to music online, AI is telling you what music to listen to. If you're shopping online, AI is telling you what stores are having sales based on your shopping preferences. If you're watching YouTube videos, AI is choosing that algorithm for you. If you are actually going to your doctors now, AI is behind that research and things. So AI is an integral part of our world that we operate in. Even so much so that countries are racing now to have the smartest AI that can control their nuclear bombs. That's not being talked about. So AI would be, eventually, in 4 or 5 years, maybe sooner, AI will be the one determining when the bomb gets pushed or when the button gets pushed, because every country is going to be racing toward the technology that governs them. And now, my take on AI is that I believe AI is a mirror of your soul. That if you have evil intention, AI is going to help you do that much more simple. But I believe by the same token that you have love intent, AI can help you do that as well. And that's how I intend to use AI. And I am using AI because to me, it's like a gun or fire. It can be destroying, destructive, or it could be warmth, and it can help you hunt, and it can feed you, depending on how you approach it. And I just want to say this too quickly, because I liken AI to training dogs. If you've ever been a dog owner and you've had to train a dog and you're going through what it takes to really train a dog, I can now walk when I'm doing my walks. I can tell by the dog walker who's walking their dog, or the dog owner, if the dog is controlling them or they're controlling the dog. Because the person whose dog is in front of them, pulling them, the dog's controlling them. When the dog is right next to the owner, looking at the owner the entire time, that owner is controlling the dog. And that dog is now a companion and a friend. In AI, it's the same way. If all you're using the AI to do is scroll, it's telling you what videos to watch, because it never ends. You watch one video, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. And so you truly have to be intentional about what you watch on YouTube, because it's going to open up a whole plethora of other videos like that. So if I'm watching videos about I don't like Charlie Kirk, then I'm going to get tons of videos about people not liking Charlie Kirk. And I think the world is, nobody likes Charlie Kirk. But someone who loves Charlie Kirk and getting tons of videos about who loves Charlie Kirk. And so they're thinking everyone loves Charlie Kirk. And that's how the algorithm conditions people and trains us. And I want to close on this point, that it goes back to our cultural givens and how we were taught and how we were raised as children. One other thing that is really impactful about growing up Black is this. We're taught as a man that if a white man was to call you a nigger, then you're supposed to act without thinking violently and deal with that issue, regardless of the situation. That's how you're taught. And if you don't do that, then there's something wrong with you. And there's a recent case where the young man did that. And now he's going to 35 years because he's acting with his emotions. That's the way our culture teaches us that. But that's what you're supposed to do. Even so much, if I'm walking into a business deal I've been trying to cultivate for the last 2 years, and it can change my life. And if I'm walking in that door toward that business deal and I get cut off in traffic, or someone on the bike passes me and then says nigger, or he says the N-word, and that's another thing that people kill me on, is though shortening it to a digit or a letter takes away the pain of the word. It's the intent behind it, that needs to be dealt with. And you depower the word by everybody is called that who acts a certain behavior. Then you depower the value of that word then. But trying to change it to an initial, say we're not going to say it, that's just too much energy being wasted. But my point I'm making is, now I would throw away my entire career in my life chasing this guy to fight this guy on his bike because he called me a name. And when you allow yourself to be identified by someone else's identity of you, then they control your trigger points. And that's what the biggest growth I had was, you're not going to be able to control my trigger. You can't just say a word and just make me throw everything away just off blind emotion. I'm not giving that kind of power to. And that's the first step towards sovereignty that I established when I was going on a 108-day journey, was I'm going to control my mind.
Yeah.
And I want to observe. Someone said the N-word, nigger. What do I do with that? Should I act? Should I not act? Say that. When you have that ability to stop in that moment, and as you say, even with your son, when you really understand that everything that happens for the reason of growth, and if you can begin to start just really looking at that, and it's not for me to say that, it's each person has to go through their own journey and see that. But if I look at now Rachel, who's choosing to say, I want to create a nonprofit called God is Tears, in my most intense pain, that's my desire. For Jess, who's gone through her grief with her father committed suicide and all that happened to her, to say, in that moment, I still want to work with you in the Fully Human movement. For Mike to go what you've gone through, Mike, and still say, I want love to be of people to have love. That to me is the fascinating stories and the pillars that I want to show folks, that even in our darkest moments, someone says, well, what if I got cancer? It's easy for you to say that. Well, here's a person with cancer. Listen to what she has to say. What if my son is having this issue? Well, here's a person whose son is having an issue. Here's what she has to say. What if I lost millions of dollars? Well, here's a man who's lost millions of dollars. He's still finding humanity. And that, to me, is a story that I love to share.
Beautiful.
I'd just like to comment on something Aurélie said, is that she slowed down. She got this diagnosis for her son, and they slowed down. And that's what I'm doing too. I was going 100 miles an hour in 4 different directions, which is literally impossible, right? And I was forced to slow down, and by slowing down, now I'm so much more productive, and I have no agenda to the outcome. It's just let go, let God. And I've worked with hundreds of cancer patients, and they all pretty much just say the same thing. Cancer was a gift that woke me up. It showed me what was truly important in my life. And so why have a tragedy? We can do that before we have the tragedy, but we have to slow down. The world is just, in the Bible says the end times, the world is going to speed up. Okay, and it's going so quick right now. We need to slow down. We need to breathe, and we need to, at least me, that's what's really, really helping me right now, is to slow down and let go and not stress out of anything, And so I think that's super important. And so thank you for that.
And I totally agree on the slowing down. It paradoxically is helping us to go faster or further. So yeah. I'm with you.
Me too. Really important that as we're going through this evolution process and releasing identity, that we actually do slow down and come into these connections where we can amplify love and our commitment to humanity. And our commitment to being fully human means that we are that space for taking the breath, for slowing down. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, okay, you had something to say.
I just a little joke with a friend. We share a passion for the sloth, and I was like, I now want to do business as a sloth, just making decisions. Yeah, it's important. I actually had like a little
sloth, and I called it sloth mode. And when I need it, I actually give myself permission to go into the condition of sloth mode. It's brilliant. It's amazing. And you don't have to get anything done. The goal of it is to actually just sloth around.
Exactly.
You know, one of my favorite quotes is by Sidney Poitier, and he says he was taught by his mother to possess your soul of patience. And the Bible tells you that patience is a virtue, right? And to the point where we're thinking ahead, we're not living in the moment. We're living next week. And you miss the fact that there's bees pollinating the world out there. There's butterflies or caterpillars transforming the butterflies. That's beautiful. There's sunsets coming up and going down. We take all that for granted until it's taken away from you. Then you realize, when I heard people who've been locked up for years that they haven't seen a sunrise or a sunset in 30 years. I couldn't imagine how that would feel, right? So when you have that ability to see that sun or feel that sun, and just enjoy the fact that there's oxygen that we can breathe, and that there's this scientific love that's in the air that we can all experience if we just stop and just feel it. That's such a great feeling. And that we rather argue about what's going to happen next week when next week doesn't even exist yet.
Yeah, we can take that moment to just like have a conscious break. And I think had my dad done that, like that actual slowing down and just taking a break is the ultimate lesson. And it's now the lesson that Aurélie and any of us who are going through a storm have, to take that breath and say, how am I going to take this diagnosis? How am I going to take this storm and walk with it? Like, hold it differently now, because I actually stopped and I took a breath. And no longer do I need to be a victim of it. Like, I can look for all the highlights this is going to bring me. And if I think of vision and identity, like losing identity, losing a world where you don't see people as their skin suit, what a blessing. And so looking for things in ways that are like, wow, I would never have that experience had I kept this vision. And now, like, allowing myself to see this vision, I can hold on to what it's like to have vision as I release it consciously. And what a shift that is. I watched that same shift with Rachel. As I was in New York for her health crisis, she hit that same rock bottom with a nurse that came in and gave the diagnosis. And the diagnosis said, you have a 3-week prognosis. And what do you do in that moment of like, well, this is it? And now it's like, the opportunity is that belief change. That opportunity is that pause and that connection, because I'll tell you now, she's months beyond that diagnosis and has so much life force, because she knows the power when she stepped into Mountains of Hope and said, that's where I need to be. And I need to learn what I learned at Mountains of Hope, to just be present with myself and to give myself my own life force, because that's it. Like, that's it. There's no other agenda when you're in that space. And it works. It works. She's living to talk about it. And she's continuing to feed herself and to feed Goddess tears, so that we also can be in this purpose, this mission of giving and filling each other up, feeding each other from long spoons, creating the heaven on earth that we dream of. The time is now. Here we are.
And as we get ready to wrap up the show, I want to give each person an opportunity to say any closing thoughts, quotes you want to share, words of wisdom, whatever's on your heart to leave our listening public with. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first. And I would just say, hey, you know, I have a brother that texts me all the time about, you know, how much Trump is a crazy person, which maybe he is. But let's turn off the TV. Let's get out to Mother Earth. Let's ground to it barefoot. Let's watch the sun, sit in the sun. Let's pick up the nature. And I think that's the beauty of Mountains of Hope, is people slow down, they breathe, they reconnect to nature, they reconnect to their heart, and they reconnect to their source. And so my favorite quote that I've been speaking a lot lately is that we don't thrive in nature, we are nature. And if you want to spend time with God, go into nature.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jess, you want to?
Ooh, I just want to say, into me I see. The deepest intimacy is within myself, and really getting that connection and dropping into myself is the ultimate. The becoming one and finding that connection is the best we can do in life, because it's from that place that we will be the best in our best service to humanity.
Absolutely. Aurélie, you want to?
I was trying to find a poem, but I just cannot find it yet. But I'll find it back and maybe send it to you. It was a poem on the eyes, and to paraphrase it, who wrote it, and the poem basically say, we need new eyes. We need to create new eyes, the eyes that are going to give us the vision of the world we want to create. So I love everything that we shared today of maybe the illusion of the vision and what it is to get rid of certain identity and move through and create new eyes for us to be together. And the other thing I wanted to say is I'm very grateful for this conversation, and I could physically feel through the conversation our connection and our closeness. Like I was having some goosebumps, and I really appreciated that. So thank you.
So, gratitude for sharing and being present and being vulnerable. A lot of folks are not, they're not authentic in this world. And I want to leave with this quote that is by Patanjali, the great yogi master. He says, when you're inspired by some great purpose, some extraordinary project, all your thoughts break their bonds. Your mind transcends limitations. Your consciousness expands in every direction, and you find yourself in a new, great, and wonderful world. Dormant forces, faculties, and talents become alive. You discover yourself to be a great person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be. And I've always had that quote. I got that from Wayne Dyer. He said it once in one of his specials. And he was someone who definitely had a lot of influence on me. And he was someone who suffered from alcoholism. So he had his struggles, but he was always a great teacher. And I've learned that there's a duality, that two people can hold, one person have done bad things, but still do good things as well. That still exists in a person. They have their shadow. And that's where I work towards, is staying more toward my true north of being a great person and less out of my shadow. And the more I serve, the more I give, the more it keeps me connected to love energy. And that's why I want to thank you all for being here, being present. I know how busy everyone is and so many things we could be doing, but for you all to invest your time and energy here today is definitely something I'm grateful for. And I want to say eternal gratitude for doing that and just being here and sharing the story and journey with me. And as we get ready to conclude this episode, until next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, let's all continue to find ways to become more fully human. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Race is a lie, a ghost in the machine, a veil over the eye. Race is a lie, a script for the managed, a reason to die. It's the dementia, the spirit, it's the glitch in the code, it's the heavy, heavy baggage on a sovereign road. Dissolve the construct. Yeah, it started as a lie, a whisper in the dark, designed to keep the brothers from finding the spark. Father is a soul whose sovereign operating system was no longer whole. He didn't pull that trigger from his fully human place. The construct had deconstruct ran the race. So stop fighting your father and dismantle the disease. If a lawyer wrote the code, the architect holds the keys. What was manufactured can be dismantled.
I think